The 13th of June 2026, 3 days into the World Cup, and FIFA's governance of this tournament is already facing the kind of scrutiny that no governing body wants at this stage of a competition. Not from legal authorities this time, not from boycott petitions or empty hotel rooms or a referee stranded at an airport, from the football itself. From a VAR decision that stopped the game, confused the stadium, enraged the pundits, and sent a wave of disbelief across the watching world within minutes of it being made. Switzerland against Qatar. Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. 17th minute. Swiss midfielder Remo Freuler drives into the penalty area. Qatar's goalkeeper Mahmoud Abu Nada comes out and brings him down. The referee points to the spot. Penalty. But wait. There is a question. Was a Swiss player in an offside position before the foul occurred? The flag stays down. VAR checks it. The review takes time. The stadium waits. The players wait. The pundits in the broadcast booths look at the replays and reach conclusions that are, depending on which expert you ask, entirely contradictory. The penalty stands. Briel Embolo, the man whose own ESTA travel authorization was flagged under review 10 days before the tournament, who navigated his own visa uncertainty just to be here, steps up, converts. Switzerland 1, Qatar 0. But the controversy is only just beginning. Gary Neville watched the replays, then he watched them again, and then he said what millions of people watching were thinking. There is a massive question over that. It is offside in my eyes until they prove me different. Why are we still not seeing conclusive evidence? Ian Wright laughed, but it wasn't the laugh of someone who found something funny. It was the laugh of someone who had seen this institution operate long enough to recognize a pattern. They're in the office seeing it now, he said. He called it scandalous. He said FIFA was doing what they want. Lee Dixon, watching the same replays with the same footage available to everyone, said simply, "Surely my vision isn't that bad." So what's really happening here, and why does this VAR controversy matter so much more than a disputed penalty in a group stage match between Switzerland and Qatar? Let's start with the specific details of the decision, because the argument is not simply that the penalty was wrong. The argument is about how the decision was reached, what was shown, and crucially, what was not shown. Semi-automated offside technology uses limb tracking data and multiple camera angles to generate a three-dimensional model of a player's body position at the precise moment the ball is played. It is, in theory, the most accurate system available for determining whether a player was offside. But theory and practice diverge at exactly the point where a decision is genuinely close, where the margin between onside and offside is a matter of centimeters, where the limb tracking data depends on which frame is selected as the reference point, and where the visual representation shown to broadcasters and to the public may not reflect the full complexity of what the technology is actually measuring. That is precisely the Switzerland-Qatar situation. The sequence, the attacker's position when Freuler was brought down, was marginal enough that two of the most experienced football analysts in English broadcasting looked at every available replay and concluded, independently and clearly, that they could not see the onside call. And FIFA did not show the decisive freeze frame. It did not display the three-dimensional model that would have demonstrated, if the technology's conclusion was correct, exactly how the onside call was reached. It announced the decision. It provided no visual justification. That absence is the part that matters, because the entire argument for semi-automated offside technology, the argument that justified its introduction, that justified the additional complexity it adds to the viewing experience, that justified the extended VAR reviews that interrupt the flow of matches, rests on transparency. The technology is supposed to provide certainty where human judgment previously provided subjectivity. But certainty requires evidence, and when the evidence is not shown, the certainty is simply asserted by an institution whose relationship with the supporters watching it has never been more strained than it is at this tournament. Gary Neville said it directly. Fans are already distrusting of FIFA and the technology to start with. There's a massive question mark over that. He is right, and the reason he is right is documented across every script that has covered this tournament's build-up.
the hot dog joke, the instruction to chill and relax, the 11 hours in a corridor for Omar Artan, the 14 Iranian officials without visas, the $2.3 million resale ticket on FIFA's own platform, the Attorney General subpoenas, the empty seats with officially announced capacity figures, the ticket inventory that disappeared from the platform without explanation. Each of those episodes has contributed to exactly the climate of distrust that Neville identified when the VAR call landed on the 13th of June. And then Qatar responded, because this is also a football story, and the football produced something remarkable. In the 94th minute, the 4th minute of added time, Boualem Koukli met a cross from the left with a powerful header that flew past Jan Sommer and into the Swiss net. Switzerland won, Qatar won. The final score. Qatar's first ever World Cup point, at the 4th attempt, after 3 previous World Cup appearances without a single point to show. A veteran center-back in the 94th minute of his country's opening group game, scoring a header that gave Qatar something historic.
Think about what that moment represented for Qatari football. The 2022 hosts, roundly criticized for their performance on home soil 4 years ago, coming to the United States as the tournament's rank outsiders in Group B and earning a point they had never previously managed at a World Cup. Their manager, Julen Lopetegui, the Spaniard who has managed West Ham and Real Madrid and Spain, described it as an incredible moment. Qatar's camp has legitimate grounds for feeling the VAR decision cost them the win they arguably deserved. But the resilience they showed in claiming what they could from the match, despite everything, deserves to be acknowledged alongside the controversy. Now shift location completely, because on the same night that the VAR controversy was erupting in Santa Clara, something very different was happening at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Scotland against Haiti. Scotland's first World Cup match since 1998, 28 years. A qualifying campaign that ended in the most dramatic fashion, 2 stoppage-time goals in the final qualifier to overtake Denmark and claim automatic qualification. An entire generation of Scottish supporters who had never seen their national team at a World Cup. And Haiti, the nation whose supporters face a complete travel ban from the United States, whose fans, with very few exceptions among those already resident on American soil, cannot follow their team to this tournament. Haiti are at the World Cup for only the 2nd time in their history. Their first appearance was in West Germany in 1974, and they are playing their games in a country whose government has placed a blanket travel restriction on their nationals. The stadium in Foxborough held Scottish fans who had navigated 11-hour flights. It held local residents who came out of curiosity, and it held a pocket of Haitian supporters, those already in the United States, those who had residency or citizenship, who were there despite the barriers, not because they had been removed. John McGinn scored, a deflected shot in the 28th minute that went in off a Haitian defender and past goalkeeper Johnny Placide. Scotland won 1-0. Their first World Cup win since 1990, 36 years ago, when they beat Sweden in Italy. Steve Clarke's side sit at the top of Group C after the opening round of matches, because, in one of the tournament's most surprising early results, Brazil and Morocco played to a 1-1 draw earlier in the day in New Jersey. Scotland's supporters back home watched the match at 2 in the morning. The kickoff in Foxborough was 9 in the evening local time. That is 2 in the morning in the United Kingdom, the price Scottish fans paid for a FIFA scheduling decision that prioritized broadcast windows in North America over the viewing experience of the nation whose team was playing. They stayed up. Of course they did. It was Scotland's first World Cup match in 28 years. You don't go to bed because the kickoff is inconvenient. But the Haiti dimension of this match deserves more than a footnote. Haiti qualified through the CONCACAF process fairly and fully. Their players went through everything a World Cup qualification campaign demands, and they are playing their group games in a country where most of their supporters cannot legally enter. The stands at Gillette Stadium were not filled with Haitian voices. The atmosphere was warm,
But it was not the atmosphere of a country following its team. It was the atmosphere of a crowd watching a match. The difference matters. It is precisely the difference between what the World Cup is supposed to be and what the 2026 edition has, in too many moments, fallen short of. Here is the bigger picture that connects the VAR controversy in Santa Clara and the Haiti situation in Foxborough and everything else that has happened across the first 3 days of this tournament. The decisions that produced the trust deficit that Gary Neville identified, the decisions that make fans distrust FIFA and its technology before a single frame of VAR footage has even been shown, are not random. They are the accumulated product of a governing body that has consistently, across multiple controversies and multiple months, prioritized institutional convenience over institutional transparency. When the VAR system produces a close decision and FIFA does not show the decisive visual evidence, when it simply announces the conclusion without demonstrating the reasoning, it is making the same kind of calculation it made when it removed ticket inventory from its platform without explanation, when it told people to chill and relax about Artan, when it responded to a legal subpoena with a statement about having checked everything with the best lawyers. The calculation is that the institution's authority does not require justification, it requires announcement. And that calculation in 2026 is meeting a football audience whose trust in the institution's authority has been specifically, repeatedly, and documentably eroded. Ian Wright said FIFA is doing what they want. He said it laughingly, but he meant it seriously. And the laughing is the part that deserves attention, because it is the laugh of someone who has given up expecting the institution to behave differently, who has processed the gap between what FIFA says it stands for and what it actually does, and reached a point of exhausted recognition. They're doing what they want. Of course they are. They've been doing what they want all along. What else would you expect? What do you think? You've watched enough football to understand the difference between a close call that goes against your team, the kind that is painful but understandable, and a decision whose reasoning is simply withheld. Does FIFA's failure to show the decisive VAR evidence in the Switzerland-Qatar decision feel like an accident of broadcast management, or does it feel like a continuation of the pattern of institutional opacity that has defined this tournament's first days? And here is the question that matters most. Qatar earned their first ever World Cup point last night in extraordinary fashion in the 94th minute. Scotland earned their first World Cup win in 36 years. Haiti's players competed with everything they had in a country where most of their supporters couldn't follow them. These are real and meaningful moments of football. Does the governing body that produced the VAR controversy, the empty seats, the Artan situation, and the hot dog joke deserve to have those moments attached to its tournament?